morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the carving shop, and this will be session 2 of carving a preening miniature hen mallard. And in the previous session, in session 1, we got the pattern made, we got the body shaped up. And in this session, we're really going to focus on the head. A lot of very meticulous detail in a small scale like this, so I'll take my time and go through that. And then we'll probably in this session get the head mounted to the body as well. We'll see how far we get today. If you're enjoying my channel, please hit the subscribe button. That does help me out. It's totally free, and the feedback has been great. I really appreciate feedback. People seem to be getting value out of the channel, so I want to continue to build this channel for people that might want to carve decoys or wildfowl, or just carve birds in general. So let's get going. Session 2. All right, I did put a screw in the bottom of the head so that I have something to hold on to while I'm carving. This is so small. I just want to keep my hands away and clear. And I want to add a few reference dimensions on here from the tip of the bill to where I'm estimating the tip of the notch is. I transferred that onto the carving, and then just kind of used my eye and experience to shape up that notch as far as the width around the center line. Then I penciled in the width of the crown, the position of the cheeks, and I had put a reference mark on the eye location just to keep those in mind. For the eyes themselves, I'm going to use stick pin head like this, about a 4mm. I don't have glass eyes, and I often do this. I'll embed that and then paint the eye later and coat it when I'm done. So, and then one more thing down here, just remembering we want to kick the neck to that side. So we'll come in from this side because it's going to wrap in. One other comment, when I carve in such a small scale like this, I'm going to keep my burrs to the side and just use ruby bits or diamond bits that just have grit. That way if I make a little slip, these are far safer than something that can snag you. So, and I really don't need the burrs. This Tupelo that I've selected is very soft and light, so it's going to be very easy to carve with the ruby bits. I'm going to go 2 times speed here, and this is a little 1/8 inch cylindrical ruby bit, and I'm just using it to go in and define the notch. So lower the bill on either side of that V-shaped notch and blend it into the remainder of the bill. Now I'm going to switch over to this bullet-shaped bigger ruby bit and use it to take off wood. So the first thing I want to do is begin to narrow the crown. And I've penciled in my guidelines so I know how deep I need to cut in here. And I can go ahead and begin to rough round the bill while I'm narrowing that down and also defining the cheek of the bird. So this bullet shape is really good for this purpose because you can go at it just about any angle. It's got a narrow tip. Now I'm taking that neck over the way we talked about to meet up with the circle that I've penciled in there, and now I'm just rounding the cheeks and rounding things in general. We want a nice hourglass shape from the front when we're done. You can see that neck, I've cocked it to one side a little on the back as well.
just taking out the saw marks as I go. So I'll do the other side in similar fashion and then come back.
All right, I wanted to stop for a second, just show you the rough shape. We've got the crown width established, the cheeks rounded, the neck kicked off to the side. Same thing in the back. I've put my center line kind of flowing directionally there. Now I want to do some layout work here on the bill. I've got the notch defined. We're going to want to carve the bill here, and I want to establish the dimension from the corner here where the upper and lower mandible meet, and pencil that in. Everything is very subtle on a miniature, so it doesn't look like much in terms of a dimension here, but to really convey accuracy and make it look proportional, I know I keep repeating myself, but it's so important on miniatures especially to get those dimensions right. So we'll remove material here and kind of define the bill next.
Okay, back at 2 times speed, and this is that little cylindrical ruby, and I'm just going to go in here. My views of laying this out were not so great. I realize that now, but when you're doing the carving and the camera work yourself, you make some mistakes. So you can clearly see here what I'm doing now. I'm just taking that cheek back so that we can put a separation between the upper and lower mandible. And now I'm going to use my 1/2 inch sanding drum and just, again, rough shape, rough sand the bill, get it kind of rounded. All right, now I want to repencil my lines here and check my symmetry. I'm going to get my pattern and get that dimension again and make sure that I've taken that cheek back far enough, and it looks like I have. So I'm going to pencil in the upper mandible, the lower edge of the upper mandible. Do the same thing on this side. And a little upturn in the corner there. Get my center line back on the bill. Now I'm back at normal speed, and I'm going to carefully take my knife and score this separation line between the upper and lower mandible. Very lightly score. This is, again, very soft tupelo, so it doesn't take much. Same thing here, a little upturn in the corner here, and then a nice smooth line out. Now I'm going to dig in the lower mandible here, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. It's going to be hard to see here, but I'm removing material from the side of the lower mandible, and hopefully I'll get a better view for you here. There you can see that little sliver, so that we have this shadow cast between the upper and lower mandible. Now I want to define this little V shape underneath the lower mandible, and I'm not going to have a lot of detail under here, but I do want to define this and take the lower mandible up just a bit, so there's some definition there of the chin. That's looking pretty good. And then I use that same cylindrical bit to define the nail and these little structures on either side of the bill at the tip. Now I'm going to use my reference and get my nostril enclosures located. So I've got a little reference dimension here from the tip of that V-notch to where the nostril enclosure starts, and then I'm going to get a length on the nostril enclosure itself. And keeping an eye on my center line here, I'm going to pencil those in. They tend to get a little more narrow towards the tip of the bill, or they angle in a bit. And then once I've got those penciled in, I'm going to use that small cylinder ruby again and outline those. And then I'll speed through the rest of this as I just shape up those nostril enclosures. This is very meticulous work. You can see I have my hands resting on something firm, and rather than trying to carve out an open space, and that will help you not have a slip, because a slip is going to remove way too much material. Now I'm going to switch to this little pin vise or a burr holder. I think James Company has these for sale, but it holds a ruby bit, and I find this really handy for this type of work, where I can just put various shaped ruby bits in this pin vise and use it as a handheld sanding tool. And I'm also using it, almost embossing around those nostril enclosures as I'm further defining them and cleaning them up. Now I'm going to use my pencil again here and just outline these so I can take a look at symmetry, see if I've got them positioned correctly. Do I need to do anything additional to shape them up? Make sure they're level from the front. Now I'll do some sanding. Once I have those smoothed out, I'm going to use my pin vise here and the tip of this ruby bit to very carefully emboss the nostrils themselves. These are so small, I don't have a ruby bit that's that tiny. So I'm just using the tip of this, pressing it in carefully, and then kind of rocking it back and forth to create that nostril opening. And it does a pretty effective job. That looks pretty good. Now I've penciled in this little ridge along the lower edge of the upper mandible, and I'm just going to carefully, very carefully, take my knife and score a line that'll give me a guideline. This is a very light touch because I don't want to go too deep here, but the knife line gives us a guideline. I'm going to use this pin vise again and use the tip of it and basically follow that guideline and emboss this little ridge along the edge of the upper mandible. You have to get creative in your techniques at this small of scale. Now I'm going to take some time with some 400 grit sandpaper and just smooth everything out and get a nice soft finish on the bill to finish things up. Now I'm taking my embossing tool and just, what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and put a few wrinkles in this bill coming out of the nostril area, just like I would on a larger, more decorative decoy. A few radiating out from the nail here. And a few along the side of the bill where you typically see a few wrinkles. They don't need to go overboard at this small a scale, but I think it does help realism. Hopefully you can see that in the video. Just a little indication of some wrinkling on the bill. That looks pretty good. Now I want to add some cheek details here, and I've kind of penciled in some guidelines to create some structure to the cheeks. I'm going to use this little pyramid shaped ruby bit, cut a little bit of a groove in here following those pencil guidelines, and then blending that out in both directions to create a nice soft transition. I just want a little bit of character in the face here. Same thing on this side, using the tip of the bit to cut the groove, and then coming back with the side of the bit, kind of rounding things out. We don't want a harsh trench, we just want very soft looking shadow cast on the face. A little farther along, I'm finishing up there, and I'm going to switch to the 1/2 inch drum sander and just again work at softening everything out, removing the tooling marks, and I can use the tip or the edge of that 1/2 inch drum to kind of do some shaping along with removing scratches and doing the sanding. I'm going to use my pen vise again, this time with a little ball shaped ruby bit, and just go back, and this is almost like a sanding tool, to go back down in those grooves and make sure I've removed all the scratches and tooling marks down in those grooves. So I'll work on this until it's nice and soft and then come back.
Now I want to put the eye grooves in place to get the eyes set at the proper width. So I need to take a little material out on each side and create a groove. So we'll do that next.
I'm going to run this at 2 times speed, and I'm using this little cone shaped ruby bit to cut that groove in. If we don't do this, the eyes are going to be bugging out and too far apart, so we need to create a natural looking eye channel here so that when we do set the eyes, they're at the proper width, distance apart from each other. I still got a little work to do here, so you can see I'm taking that eye channel right down to the bill, and that's where the bird is going to have a line of sight to whatever it's feeding on. Check one more time. Still need to take a little bit more out. So I'm very close, but I want to make sure I'm accurate here in such a small scale, or things might look awkward. Okay, I think that's where I need to be. Once I have those at the proper depth, now I'm going to use my bullet-shaped ruby to round the crown. And I'm going to keep my center line intact so I don't lose the pattern. But I want the crown to be nice and round as you look at it from the front. And this will take some time to take it down. And notice I'm being careful that I don't narrow up the crown more. There, I'm penciling in my center line again so I can keep that in front of me. I'll keep working on this, and eventually I'll do some hand sanding to remove any tooling marks, and then come back.
All right, I've got that sanded and shaped up. And now I want to locate the eye, and I'm going to go right from the tip of the notch up there to the center of the eye. Mark that on both sides. See if that looks right. And it does. Now I want to drill a little clearance hole for this eye to be pressed in place. So I went ahead and penciled in the diameter on each side, so I've got a guideline.
Now I'm going to use this little 1/8 inch diameter ruby bit and use it kind of like an end mill. So I'm going to, the end of this bit has grit on it, so you can use it kind of like a drill. So put a little pocket in both sides here. That's about all we need. Now I'm going to check the diameter of the eye, and that looks just about right, that I can press that in place. That's going to work well.
I'm using this tool and then a little sandpaper to create a little bit of an accent on the back edge there, just to cast a little bit of a shadow, give the head a little more character. I'll sand that out so it's nice and smooth. Hopefully you can see that. All right, I used my side cutters to cut off the majority of the stick pin, but left a little bit out there so I can press that in place. And I'm going to use a nail and 2-part DevCon epoxy. Get that mixed up, and I'm using a nail so that I can put it inside the eye hole and not get too much on the surrounding area, but not a killer if it's got a little excess. Then I'm going to take the eye, put the stick pin portion in first, and I'm going to press that in place. I tried to size the hole so we'd have a press fit. Like that. Wipe off the excess. And no putty required, so it's a nice clean installation. That looks pretty good. All right, I used a white stick pen because I didn't have 2 black ones, but they're going to be painted, so I just wanted to mention that in case you were wondering. Now I've got the components ready, and now I can look at different poses. We could twist this all the way back here, which is kind of nice. I want the bill to be in contact with the scapulars. So if I'm going to put it up here, I'll have to make a little adjustment in the angle of the neck here so that that head can make, the bill can make contact in that position. And I may, while I'm doing that, turn the head a bit one way or the other as well. But I think I just wanted to show that, you know, there are lots of options now, even something like that. But I made the bird to be a preener, so that's what I want to do. I think I'm going to avoid too much of a severe twist because I'd have to remove a lot of material back here. That's possible to do. I need to think about it a while. That's the fun of carving. All right, I played around with it for a little while, and I think I want the angle of the head to be in that position, so I've given myself a little marker there. And it looks like to make contact, I have to remove, looks like about 1/8 of an inch off of this side and angle that down in this position. So I'll go ahead and make that adjustment. I also want to give the head a little bit of a tilt in this direction, just to make it look like she's really working those feathers, and you often see them in that position, not like this, but like this. So as I'm taking material off here, I'll also angle it down just a bit. All right, it didn't take much to change things up, and I put a little pocket there, ground a little pocket, so that I can epoxy the bill in place and have it just slightly into the scapular feathers. Final adjustment, I just put a little head tilt in there, and now I'm ready to epoxy the head to the body. Got my epoxy mixed up. Put some on both surfaces so we get a good bond. I'm also going to put just a little bit under the bill here in that pocket, just to give it an anchor point. I'll have some cleanup carving to do to match those surfaces up well. That looks pretty nice. Now I'm using a little plastic wood and using acetone to smooth that out to cover the neck joint here. The reason I'm using plastic wood is with the acetone I can use a brush and really get a nice blend into the surrounding areas. And that's more difficult using Bondo or some other type of material. So that's looking pretty good. The other thing I'm going to do is use just a little bit of plastic wood right here. And I want to blend in a little feather here as though it's wrapping up and over the bill in that area. So I just put a little plastic wood down, and now I'm using the acetone to blend it into the bill. And I'm going to use that when I paint this bird as an indication of a feather, a scapular feather coming up and over the side of the bill, and give me a little detail. I'll work on that for a while, but just on this side I want that little additional material, and then blend that in to the surrounding area. About like that. Here's just a quick look after that plastic woodwork has been done. Now I'll let that set, and then we can finish things up.
I decided I wanted to add a few more carving details, so I'm going to notch the tail back here and do a little bit of work on the tail feathers. I've got this 1/8" cylindrical ruby, and I'm going to create the notches here between tail feathers so that the tips of the feathers are showing. And then I'll jump ahead here. Just do that across the entire tail to separate the tail feathers. One more little detail, I'm carving in the back of the speculum feather group there as it meets the primaries, just so there's a little bit of a shadow cast there, and that will complement the paint later when I paint the speculum in that location. A little bit of hand sanding to clean everything up. There you can see the definition.
Now that the plastic wood is cured, I'm just doing a little light sanding. Actually, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And I don't have to sand much at all because of that acetone approach where you smooth out the material. So it's pretty smooth to begin with. That's looking good. I'll just do some final sanding and then I'll just sand off the bottom and get it ready to go. Make it official and get it branded.
Then I'll seal up the bird with Prolux Semigloss. I'll probably put 4 or 5 coats on the bird to get it all sealed up.
Got my little Rube Goldberg paint handle, just a screw through a piece of plastic tubing. That makes it convenient to hang on to. I masked the bottom of the decoy off, and now I'm just going to prime it. All right, just a quick 360 look at the primed bird. All right, everybody, that's a wrap on the miniature preening hen mallard carving project. I'm now going to be doing a how-to painting series on this bird because I have a full-blown how-to painting video for sale on my website at tomchristyart.com for a full-size version of this same bird, if that might be of interest to you. But I will circle back and show completed pictures of the painted bird for your reference. Hopefully, this encourages you to try your hand at miniatures. I think they're a lot of fun, and it's kind of a break to keep things mixed up. I've shared some techniques that I hope you can use, whether it's on a miniature bird or a full-size bird. But until next time, Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you. Thanks again for all the feedback and the support for my channel. I appreciate it.